Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something pretty wild. Today we're tackling Green Maw, a painting that's got art critics and like Zen philosophy folks all buzzing.
Yeah, it's really interesting how one piece of art can spark so many different
It
interpretations.
really is. And
Yeah.
we've got two sources here. One's a video essay that really breaks down the symbolism, and the other's an art book that puts Green Maw into context with the artist's other works.
Cool.
So before we go full philosophy professor, let's just describe what we're even looking at.
Sure.
Both sources talk about these swirling greens, almost like these organic shapes,
Cool.
but they're kind of ambiguous, kind of like a chaotic but alive landscape.
I see that.
But there's this one key difference between Green Mall and another painting by the same artist, Whispers.
Oh, yeah, right. Whispers has like two really distinct figures, almost like they're interacting or something, whereas Green Maw is just the singular mass that like consumes everything.
So it's like the artist is moving away from duality and separate things and more towards this complete merging. That's fascinating because that visual shift totally connects to what both sources say about Zen concepts like impermanence and interconnectedness.
Right.
It's almost like the painting itself is like a visual representation of those ideas.
Exactly. Think about it in Green Maw. There are no like clear boundaries or separate figures. Everything's kind of swirling together, merging and changing constantly.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
perfect visual metaphor for that Zen idea, that everything's in constant flux, always flowing into something else.
Okay. I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us who aren't, Zen masters,
Yeah.
how would you explain this whole constant change and merging thing in a way that we can wrap our heads around?
Okay, imagine like looking out at the ocean.
Okay.
You see waves, they're rising and falling, always changing shape.
Right.
But it's all still part of that same ocean, And that's kind of like the idea of impermanence and interconnectedness in Zen.
Okay.
Everything's changing, but it's all connected, part of one big flow.
Gotcha. So it's like Green Ma with its swirling greens and no defined shapes really captures that feeling of everything kind of blending together.
Yeah.
The sources also mention a specific Zen teaching called sunyata, or emptiness.
Right.
What's that all about?
Well, sunyata can be a little tricky, but think of it this way. Imagine the boundaries between you and everything around you just kind of blurring.
Okay.
That sense of separation fades, and all that's left is this feeling of unity, like you're part of something much bigger than yourself.
Hmm.
That's sunyata. It's realizing that the self, how we usually think of it, is actually empty of any inherent existence.
I see. So it's not about emptiness in a bad way. It's more about recognizing that everything's connected and part of a bigger whole.
Exactly.
And that links back to what we were saying of the painting, how it shows everything merging and flowing together.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that the video essay even mentions I Ching hexagram 59 dispersion.
Wow.
This hexagram emphasizes breaking down rigid structures to achieve harmony and renewal. And when you look at Green Maw, it's almost like the artist has visually dispersed all those separate forms and you've broken them down into the swirling, interconnected mass.
It's like the painting is telling us that by letting go of those rigid boundaries, like those separate forms, we can actually reach a deeper harmony and make space for something new.
Yeah.
But it's not all just swirling green, right? There
Yeah.
are these flashes of red and orange that jump out at you.
Oh, yeah, those are crucial. We were just talking about breaking down structures for renewal, right?
Right.
Well read in this context symbolizes that spark of life, the energy that ignites creation.
I see.
It's like a little explosion of energy within all that swirling green, like a suggestion that even amidst chaos, there's this powerful life force at play.
So we've got green representing that constant change and interconnectedness, and red symbolizing the energy behind creation.
Yeah.
It's like the painting is showing us the very essence of life itself with all its chaos and potential.
And that green, it's not just about change, it also represents a kind of fertile potential.
What do you mean?
Okay, think about a forest after a fire.
Oh, yeah.
At first, it looks totally devastated, but underneath all that ash, new life is already starting to sprout.
Right.
That's the fertile potential of chaos, that idea that destruction can actually make way for new beginnings.
And you can kind of see that in Green Maw. Like the swirling greens aren't just random.
Right?
There's this sense of energy and movement, like somebody's being born out of the chaos.
Exactly. It's not just decay, it's growth and renewal, too.
And this whole fertile potential idea connects to a Taoist concept, too. The bellows.
Yeah.
The bellows are empty, but they create a powerful gust of wind,
Yeah.
to spark a fire.
Right.
In the same way, chaos can seem destructive,
Yeah.
but it can also give birth to new life.
Bizarre.
I'm really seeing how these different ideas from Zen and Taoism are like woven together in this painting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's not just pretty colors and shapes. It's about these profound concepts about life creation and like our place in the universe.
Mm.
But it's also a specific piece of art, created in a certain time and place. So what about the artistic influences? How do they help us understand Green Ma?
Well, the art book does a great job of putting Green Ma in context, historically
Yeah.
speaking. It draws parallels to surrealism and fantastic art, particularly how those movements explored the subconscious and used bizarre, dreamlike imagery.
Hmm.
And Green Ma, with its weird organic forms and that feeling of like otherworldly chaos, definitely fits in with that tradition.
So it's not just about Zen philosophy. There's a whole art historical context that helps us understand the painting's visual language.
Yeah.
And what about that comparison to Whispers that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
It seems like Green Ma represents a pretty significant shift in the artist's work.
It absolutely does. Whispers is all about duality. It's
Yeah.
about the tension between two separate figures. But in Green Ma, the artist has moved past duality to show this state of complete unity where everything is merged into this single, all-encompassing entity. The art book emphasizes how the artist's work always explores transformation.
Got it.
Whispers represents one stage in that exploration, while Green Ma takes it even further, pushing us to see beyond the boundaries of those individual forms. But I think there's another layer to this idea of transformation that's worth looking at, and it takes us right to the heart of the creative process itself.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. How does Green Ma reflect the creative process?
Well, think about how the painting is structured.
Okay.
It's not like neat or orderly.
Right.
It's this dense, layered mass of forms, almost like a jungle of ideas and visual elements, Doesn't that remind you of how creative ideas often pop up, not in a straight line, but through like messy experimentation where you make unexpected connections and new forms just kind of emerge organically?
Wow, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's like the painting itself represents that chaotic, unpredictable creative process where inspiration can come from anywhere and lead to these wild results.
Exactly. And the fact that Green Ma doesn't have a clear focal point also plays into this. Just like an artist might not have a fully formed idea at the start, but lets the painting evolve organically, the viewer's eye is invited to like wander through the composition,
I can see that.
making their own connections and discovering new details. It's like a visual representation of how creative ideas can come from the most unexpected places.
It's like we're not just looking at a painting. We're experiencing the creative process itself with all its messiness and unpredictability.
Right.
And if we connect this back to the color symbolism, it's like that interplay between green and red takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
It's not just about chaos and creation in nature. It's about the essence of artistic expression itself, the passion and the energy that drive the creative process.
You got it. Green Ma is a dynamic representation of that interplay between chaos and creation, between destruction and renewal.
Mm.
And it's not just about the artist's creative process. It's about tapping into that same energy within ourselves.
Now, that's an interesting book. What do you mean by tapping into that same energy? Are you saying we can all be artists, that we all have that creative spark inside us?
I think so, yeah. But it might not always show up in like traditional art forms, What's fascinating is how both sources, even though they have different approaches, both end up at this idea of Green Ma as a reflection of not just the artist's process, but of life itself.
So we're moving beyond art. Now we're talking about life, about how Green Ma can teach us something about how to live, how to navigate the chaos and find meaning in it all.
Exactly. And to unpack that, we need to dive deeper into how these ideas of impermanence, interconnectedness, and the creative process actually play out in our everyday lives.
Yep.
But I think that's a conversation for part 2 of our deep dive.
I couldn't agree more. We've covered so much already, from Zen philosophy to artistic influences to the very nature of the creative process. But now I'm really curious to see how we can apply these ideas to our own lives. So stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to get practical and explore how Green Ma can help us navigate the chaos and find beauty in the everyday.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've unpacked all these ideas behind Green Ma, the Zen philosophy, the artistic influences, that whole metaphor, the creative process.
Right.
But how do we actually apply that stuff to our own lives?
Yeah.
Because let's be real, life can feel a lot like that painting sometimes. Just a big swirl of chaos.
Well, I think that's kind of the point Green Ma is trying to make.
Really?
It's not about avoiding the chaos. It's about figuring out how to move with it.
So we're not aiming for perfect order and control. We're embracing the mess.
Exactly. And remember that idea of impermanence we talked about?
Yeah.
Everything's constantly changing,
Yeah.
our emotions, relationships, even our to-do list.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What if instead of resisting all that change, we just kind of leaned into it?
Yeah.
Saw it as a chance to grow.
Okay, so instead of freaking out when my plans get messed up, I should see it as a chance to like adapt and learn something new.
Exactly. And this ties back to that idea of interconnectedness too.
Hmm.
You know, we're not just isolated individuals dealing with these changes all alone.
Right.
We're part of something much bigger. Think about it. When you look at green mock, can you tell exactly where one shape ends and another one begins?
No, not
It's
really.
all connected. So
Yeah.
you're saying even when I'm struggling, I'm not actually alone.
Yeah,
I'm part of this larger web of experience, which is kind of comforting when you think about it.
it is. Yeah, and just like in the painting where those flashes of red pop out from that swirling green,
Right.
new life and beauty can come out of even the most chaotic situations.
Exactly. Green Maw is like a reminder that destruction and creation aren't opposites. They're part of the same cycle?
Okay, so we're embracing change. We're remembering that we're all connected. This
Yes.
is starting to feel less abstract and more like something I can actually use.
I'm glad to hear that.
What else can we take from Green Maw and apply to our lives?
Well, think back to that creative process. The painting is this messy, layered explosion of forms.
Yeah,
Creativity isn't about following some set formula.
right.
It's about experimenting, making unexpected connections, letting things just kind of unfold.
So it's okay to be messy, to try things and not have them work out perfectly.
Exactly.
That actually takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, and you can apply that mindset to so much more than just making art.
Sure.
When we approach challenges with curiosity and openness, we're way more likely to find creative solutions.
That makes sense.
Remember, Green Maw doesn't have one single focal point.
Right.
It invites you to explore, to find your own path through the chaos.
So I'm starting to see Green Mall less as this jumbled mess and more like this tapestry of possibilities.
I like that.
It's like a reminder to not get so fixated on one outcome, one right way of doing things.
It's about letting go of that need to control everything and trusting that something beautiful will come out of the process, even if it's not what we expected.
Green Ma really pushes us to rethink our whole relationship with chaos, doesn't it?
It does. We've talked about Zen philosophy or their history, even our own creative potential.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most powerful message comes from just looking at the art itself.
That's true. Art has this way of like bypassing our logical minds and speaking to us on a deeper level.
It does.
It can evoke emotions and spark insights that we can't even put into words.
I agree.
And Green Maw, with its swirling forms and the vibrant colors, it makes me feel all those things.
Yeah.
The energy of chaos, the wonder of creation, the peace of that interconnectedness.
That's awesome.
But there's one thing that keeps bugging me. We've talked a lot about the chaos, but you said earlier that there's also this sense of underlying order in the painting. How do those two things coexist? How can something be chaotic and ordered at the same time?
That's a great observation, and it brings us to a really important point about Green Maw.
Okay.
The chaos isn't random. There's a structure there, a sense of balance that holds it all together. Think about the composition, how the forms swirl and intertwine, but they never actually spill over the edges of the canvas?
Yeah.
There's this feeling of containment, of harmony within the chaos.
I see. So it's not about forcing order onto chaos. It's more about recognizing that there's an inherent order within the chaos itself.
Exactly. And that's a really profound insight that we can apply to life, too.
Oh, so?
Well, the universe might seem chaotic on the surface, but underneath it all, there are these fundamental laws and principles that govern everything. It's like watching a flock of birds swirling through the sky.
Yeah.
It's an intricate dance, a beautiful chaos, but it's all guided by this unseen order, this shared intelligence.
Wow.
And that's what Green Maw reminds us of, to trust that even when things seem messy and unpredictable, there's a deeper harmony at play.
That's a really powerful thought. It's like a reminder that we don't need to control everything. We can just surrender to the flow and trust that even in the middle of all the chaos, there's a deeper order unfolding.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a second, talk about actually experiencing Green Maw in person.
Okay.
If you were standing in front of this painting, what are some things you'd want to pay attention to? Well, first, I try to resist the urge to overthink everything and just let the painting wash over me, Feel the impact of those swirling greens, the energy of the reds and oranges, really let myself get lost in it.
I love that. Don't just stand back and observe it from a distance, get up close.
Yeah, get right up in there.
Let your eyes wander through all those tangled forms. Notice the little shifts in color, the way the light plays on the texture.
Yeah.
Really immerse yourself in the details.
And don't forget about the title Green Maw. It's such a powerful image, you know? Makes me think about the raw power of nature, how it can be both beautiful and destructive.
It is powerful, and that duality is right there in the painting, too. In the swirling forms, the interplay of light and shadow, those vibrant colors that almost seem to pulsate with life.
So it's not about passively looking at the painting. It's about actively engaging with it, letting it spark your imagination and challenge how you see things.
Right.
It's interesting how we've approached this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we started with these separate ideas like Zen philosophy, art history, the creative process.
Right.
But as we've gone deeper, they've all kind of starting to merge and flow together, just like the forms in Green Maw.
That's a great point. It speaks to that interconnectedness of everything, you know? It's like we're experiencing the painting's message as we talk about it.
We began with these seemingly separate categories, but the more we explore them, the more we see how they're all intertwined.
Yeah.
It's like that underlying order we talked about, you know, emerging from what first seemed like chaos.
That's a beautiful parallel, and I think that's what makes Green Moss such a timeless piece of art. It's not just a beautiful object, it's something that makes you think more deeply, you know? It reminds us of the beauty and complexity of the world and how everything is connected.
And it's not just about understanding the painting intellectually. It's about taking those insights and letting them change our lives.
Right.
The way we deal with challenges, the way we see the world, even the way we tap into our own creativity.
Exactly. Green Maw encourages us to embrace change,
Yeah.
to find beauty in the chaos, to remember that even in the midst of destruction, there's always the potential for something new to grow. And that's a message that resonates with everyone, whether you're an art lover or just someone trying to figure out life's complexities.
This has been such a journey.
It has.
We've learned about Zen philosophy.
Yeah.
We dove into art history. We even got some practical advice for everyday life.
We did.
But there's this one final thought from the video essay that I think really captures the heart of Green Maw.
Oh, yeah.
They urged viewers to let Green Maw inspire them to embrace the chaos in their own lives,
Okay.
to see it not as something scary, but as a source of energy and creative potential.
That's good.
And they framed it as a call to action, you know, encouraging us to apply those ideas of impermanence and interconnectedness to our own experiences, to look at the world through the lens of Green Maw and find harmony in the middle of the chaos. It's like they're saying, don't just admire the painting, live it.
Exactly. Green Maw pushes us to realize that the boundaries we see are just temporary and fluid. It's about surrendering to the flow of life and trusting that even in the chaos, there's a harmony that's waiting to emerge.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it also brings up a really interesting question. How do we actually do that? How do we really embrace chaos and find harmony in it?
That's a great question, and one that I think deserves more attention. So why don't we take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed so far, and when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into the practical side of these ideas and explore how we can apply the wisdom of Green Maw to our daily lives.
Sounds good. Let's take a moment to let all of this sink in, and when we return, we'll explore how Green Maw can inspire us to live more creatively, more consciously, and more connected to the world around us.
Okay, so before we took a moment to think about, how we'd create our own Green Maw, our own visual representation of the chaos and harmony in our lives,
Right.
it's kind of a daunting task, when you consider how much is packed into the original painting.
It is, but that's also what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
There's no one right answer. It's all about tapping into your own unique experiences and seeing what comes up.
So it's not about trying to be like the artist or copy them. It's more about using Green Maw as inspiration to spark our own creative exploration.
Yeah, remember how we talked about the painting as a metaphor for the creative process? Well, now it's your turn to be the artist. Think about what Green Maw means to you personally, What are those swirling forces, the chaotic energies, the moments of harmony that make up your life? I'll admit, it's tough to really pin down, I think about juggling work deadlines, family commitments, trying to fit in time for my own creative projects. And somewhere in there, finding a moment to just breathe.
Yeah.
It's chaotic for sure. But there are those bursts of joy, those moments of connection that make it all worthwhile.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah.
How would you translate those feelings into something visual? What colors come to mind when you think about those different parts of your life?
For the chaos. Maybe a mix of like fiery reds and oranges to capture that feeling of urgency and intensity. But I'd also want some cool blues and greens in there too,
Yeah.
to represent those calmer moments.
Yeah.
Those times when I feel grounded and at peace.
I love that you're already creating your own visual language. Now think about the shapes. Would your personal green maw be like a swirl of abstract shapes, or would you have more recognizable things in it?
I'm leaning towards abstract, but maybe with like subtle hints of recognizable things woven in, like hands reaching out or
Yeah.
faces kind of merging together to show that interconnectedness we keep talking about.
That's a beautiful image. And remember, it doesn't have to be literal. Art's power is in evoking emotions and ideas through color, shape, and texture.
Right.
Think about how the artist used those swirling green strokes to show that constant change and interconnectedness. How could you use those same elements to express your own experience of those concepts?
You're right. It's not about making a perfect picture. It's more about capturing the feeling. This conversation's making me want to get out my art supplies and just experiment.
Yeah.
See what happens when I let go of trying to control everything and just let my intuition lead the way.
I think you should go for it. Don't be afraid to get messy, play with different colors and textures, see what happens. Remember, Green Maw isn't just about looking at a painting, it's about tapping into that same creative energy that the artist used, the energy that's inside all of us.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that that energy isn't always neat and tidy. It can be messy, unpredictable, and full of surprises, just like life itself. Which brings us back to that big question. How do we apply the wisdom of Green Maw to our everyday lives? How do we embrace the chaos and find harmony within it?
It starts with changing how we see things. Remember how the painting challenges our ideas about chaos and order? It shows us that they're not opposites but two sides of the same coin.
Right.
So instead of trying to get rid of chaos in our lives, which is impossible, by the way,
Yeah.
we can start to see it as energy, as something that can help us grow and be creative.
So it's about learning to dance with the chaos, to move with it, instead of fighting against it.
Exactly. And that takes practice. It means letting go of needing to control everything, accepting that there will be unexpected twists and turns, and trusting that we have what it takes to handle them. Remember that concept of sunyata, that feeling of emptiness we talked about? It's not about being empty in a bad way. It's about realizing that we are not our thoughts, our emotions, or even our circumstances. We are something bigger, something more expansive.
So when chaos hits, when things feel overwhelming, we can tap into that sense of spaciousness, that inner knowing that we aren't defined by the chaos that's swirling around us. It's like finding that calm spot in the middle of a storm.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and that's where the interconnectedness comes in. Just like the forms in Green Maw are all intertwined. We're not separate, isolated beings.
Right.
We're part of this larger web of life, and that connection can give us strength and resilience, especially when we feel lost in the chaos.
It's like knowing that even when things are tough, we're not alone. There's this whole universe of support out there, this network of connected beings all going through the same dance of chaos and harmony.
Exactly.
And maybe, just maybe, by embracing the mess, by letting ourselves be vulnerable and open to the unexpected, we can tap into a deeper creativity, a more profound sense of connection, and a greater appreciation for the beauty that's there, even in those really chaotic moments.
You said it perfectly. Green Maw isn't just a painting. It's a mirror reflecting the chaos and beauty of our own lives. It reminds us that we get to choose how we respond to that chaos, to see it not as a threat, but as a chance to grow, transform, and express ourselves creatively.
Wow. I think we've come full circle. We started with a painting and ended up exploring these big questions about life, creativity, and our place in the universe.
That's the power of art. It can spark conversations, challenge how we see things, and connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And Green Maw, with its swirling greens and those hidden harmonies, it's a perfect example of that. It's a painting that sticks with you, that makes you want to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep finding beauty in unexpected places.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Green Maw. We hope it's inspired you to see the world differently, to embrace the chaos, and to tap into your own creative energy. Until next time, keep diving deep.